Welcome back to The Real Deal again. This is part 4 of my Founding Fathers episodes. This is the conclusion. I'm not going to go after every individual person because there's so many of them and they're all so flawed. But let me just say, out of the 56 men that signed the Lee Resolution, which would be called the Declaration of Independence, 56 were all men because women and minorities were excluded from political platforms. They were all men, they were all white, they were all rich, and they were all wealthy landowners. Now, you look at the political platforms today, it's almost the same. Certain parties, what they do is they've tokenized it. They bring people in, and the only reason they do that is they bring them in so we need more black people down in South Carolina. So let's bring in and get this South Carolina black person there so we can get that state to be on our side. It's exactly what they do, and they've done it for years. Well, let's get this. Let's do this. We need more of this. That's what they do. Because they don't care about the people. They just care about themselves, their parties, and their votes. And these guys, the schools will tell you, history books will tell you, they glorify these people. They glorify them. Now, by signing this, though, they weren't sealing their death sentence, but they were saying they're rebelling. Rebellion against the crown is punishable. They could have killed him if they caught him, but many of these guys played both sides. These guys were nobodies. They were not nobodies that just came out of the woodwork. They were somebodies, and the British Crown knew who they were, and they'd already worked with them. Now, Ben Franklin was over there all the time. Ben Franklin was a founding father. Ben Franklin was over there all the time, and he got away with a lot of stuff. He played both sides. But here's the deal. Ben Franklin, though, was a slave owner. And history will show that, they've given the number, but it's probably more than that. He had sex with hundreds of women. He didn't care. He was over there getting anything he could, tapping everything he could. I will say this, in his later years, he did free and emancipate all his slaves, and towards the end of his life, he did become an abolitionist. So I will give him credit for that. Although they did find a bunch of dead bodies in one of his houses when they were fixing it up a few years ago. And there's always been speculation of that. He was a member of the Hellfire Club over there in Europe. I mean, he had some shady business going on. But they knew him. And he was okay because he played both sides of the fence. There were only 5 signers of the Declaration. 5 of the 56 that signed it were captured and imprisoned by the British. And they treated them like prisoners of war. And they were basically beaten. And they were not treated very good. Now, these are the guys you don't hear of, though. The other guys, did they hide out? No, because they had mansions and stuff. These guys had nice houses, too, but they got caught. These guys were Richard Stockton, who was from New Jersey, George Walton from Georgia. Another one was Thomas Hayward Jr., and Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge. I don't want to mispronounce his name. But those guys were all from South Carolina. They were taken prisoner, and they treated them like prisoners of war. They tortured them. They deprived them of food. And when the war was over even, it didn't go over too good. Now, those guys eventually got freed once the war was over, so that was okay. They survived. Many of the original signers, not the big ones you've all heard about, but many of them, they suffered heavy losses because the British Crown wanted to take them down. And they're like, okay, we're going to do what we can do. And again, they didn't go after Jefferson. They didn't go after these guys like that. They went after the guys you don't hear of too much, like those guys. They lost their property. They lost a lot of their money. They lost their horses. But none of the signers were executed. None of them were executed at all. And a lot of them did not suffer for the people or what they did. And you've never heard of those guys. Those guys you never heard of, they're the ones that suffered. And that's sad. And those are the ones we need to remember more. Why don't we put them on money? Why don't we make little heroes out of them? Instead of putting all the rich slave owners, let's just put these rich slave owners and give them some credit. I mean, basically, they put their lives on the line for our freedom. The others, they say they did because they signed it. You know, they made deals. They made deals with other countries. It's not right, man. You know, they took advantage. And that's what, like, career politicians do now. You got old Bernie Sanders been in there, 300 years now? So it seems like it. Man, that guy's been in there forever. I believe in term limits, but it's never going to happen because the people that vote for the term limits are the ones that will be affected by the term limits. I saw Nancy Pelosi trying to walk the other day. I think she plotched herself. It was like, I'm like, man, there comes a time when you know it's time to retire. You know it's not any good. And the people that vote for these guys, why don't they sit there and look and go, I'm not voting for her. She's almost 100 years old. What do the old know about the young? They don't know how to represent. So we need to memorialize these guys like Stockton and Barrett. You never heard of them. But they were the ones that suffered. And to me, those guys gave the most because they had the most to lose, their lives. And most of them lost everything, those guys I mentioned. The rest of the people I've been talking about earlier, they didn't lose nothing. They profited. They made big money off of all this. They knew what they were doing. Now, were they for our freedom? Sure. But were they benefiting from it? Oh, you betcha. You betcha. I feel bad because people don't know the truth and people don't know history. Saw a guy the other day in Florida interviewing people. They don't know what Independence Day is. They think July 4th is just a holiday we light fireworks off, Chinese-made fireworks. And, you know, and have big parties and get drunk on foreign beer. You know, they couldn't name the founding fathers if they were paid to. They don't know much, you know. And I don't think it's their fault because I will say the schools don't teach much. What do you learn in history classes now? George Washington, they call him the father of our country. Why? I told you before, Washington lost more battles than he won. Washington did a lot of bad stuff. Father of the country? Well, maybe, because he had a lot of slaves. So let me just say this. Out of the 56 that signed the Declaration of Independence, which we are celebrating, July 4th, 1776, our 250th anniversary of the United States formation, where we told Britain to shove it. We weren't taking their crap anymore. Not everybody was able to sign it that day. Some people weren't able to make it in. Some people were sick. Some people were hiding out. And out of the 56 men who signed it, 41 were slaveholders. Wrap your mind around that. These are guys signing a piece of paper telling Britain, we're not taking you anymore, we're free. 41 out of 56 were slave owners. That's about 74%. So that's basically 3 out of every 4 persons there own slaves. And afterwards, did they free their slaves? No, they did not. And here's another thing. 41 were documented slave owners. Let's put it that way. The other ones, we don't know for sure. But I would assume most of them were. And afterwards, there was only one person, one man freed his slaves. He had one slave. His name was William Whipple from New Hampshire. He said he freed his slave. He had one slave. The slave's name was Prince. He said afterwards it was hypocritical to fight for freedom while holding another person in slavery. And he's right. It's very hypocritical to go in there and say all men are created equal, freedom. You know? It's very hypocritical. You know, give me liberty or give me death. Okay, give the liberty slaves, okay? Give them some liberty, people. But he freed his servant. And that guy that he freed, Prince, fought in the war. Fought proudly in the war. And Whipple went. Now, a lot of guys back then, when they did free slaves, it was indentured servants, like Crispus Attucks. You probably don't know about this. He was the first person to die in the Revolutionary War for the United States. An indentured servant, a freed black man in Boston, in the Boston Massacre. Very well liked, very well respected. He earned his freedom. Back then, a lot of people went with what they call the Old Testament of the Bible, where the Christians would give them, after 7 years, they were free. And they would give them stuff. Whipple freed Prince, gave him his stuff. He said, here you go, you're free. And here's a house. Here's a little bit of money. Gave him some property. That's what you're supposed to do. And I give him a lot of credit, not for all that, because he did own a slave, but I do give him credit for coming out of there, out of that signing on that hot Philly day, and saying, this ain't right. I shouldn't own anybody. I was just on this board saying, we need to be free. We need to be equal. I can't own a person and try to say I'm wanting others to be free. How can I sit there and say my country needs to be free of oppression when I'm oppressing somebody? Smart guy. Have a lot of respect for Mr. Whipple. Probably never heard of him, have you? Nope. Because they don't put those guys on the money. They don't make monuments for those guys. Now, up in New Hampshire, maybe. But the rest of the country, you don't hear of these guys. It's not in the history books. It is, but you're going to have to dig for it. You're not going to learn it in school. You're not going to learn that in school. They're not going to tell you that stuff. And nobody else freed their slaves, did they? No, they didn't care. A majority of the founding fathers were rich white slave owners. They were all rich and white, but a majority of them were slaveholders. So I think I've made my point. I've told the truth. I'm sure a lot of people aren't happy because they like living in a life of illusion and delusion. They're like, how dare you expose the truth about these guys? We don't want to know that. We like living in the shadows of history and being brainwashed. Well, I don't, people. I don't. Now, on the 4th of July, when you're all out there on your boats and watching the Chinese-made fireworks, and your boats aren't made in America anymore, drinking your foreign beers, you know, wearing your foreign clothes, waving your little foreign-made flags and everything you got. Remember the real founding fathers, the good ones. There was a couple. There was a few of them that you don't hear about. Gave you some of the names today. You won't hear about a lot of those guys. Think about that. And be grateful for what you have. Not with what you don't have. And don't praise these guys. Don't say, I'm glad George Washington did that. If Washington didn't do it, someone else would have. Somebody else maybe that was better than him. Seriously. Someone that didn't own slaves might have stepped up and done something. Might not have wanted the money. Might want to have said, I don't need any money for this. It's an honor. You don't get that anymore. And here's another thing. When you were singing the national anthem, I personally don't like the United States national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. Do you know why? Well, I'll tell you why. Francis Scott Key wrote it in 1814 while he was on a ship being held by the British. He was a rich lawyer, a white guy, and he owned a lot of slaves. He was a very prominent person in the community, had a ton of money, and he wrote that. And there's some touchy words in there. Now, all anybody ever sings is the first verse, but he was a racist. He was a racist. The song, I remember when the Black Lives Matter thing was going on, Colin Kaepernick and all that crap. And here's the thing. They didn't get rid of Colin Kaepernick because he did what he did. The sports teams got rid of him because he sucked. He wasn't a good quarterback. That boy had more white privilege than anybody listening. I mean, he came from a rich white family. His own family didn't want him. But Francis Scott Key was a racist. There are terms in there, if you read the lyrics, and the apologist will try to put a spin on it. No, he's basically ripping on black folks that they were freed blacks or escaped slaves that started fighting for the British during the War of 1812 because the British said, we will give you freedom if you fight for us. So it's kind of a sketchy song. Besides that, I really don't like the fact that some guy that was a proud slave owner wrote it. I don't like that. Just bothers me. And yes, I think it's verse 3 and verse 4. There's a couple racist things in there. I'm like, ooh, yuck. So I don't like that. I personally think our national anthem should be America the Beautiful. But they won't let it happen because the word God's in there. Just like God Bless America, that would never happen. Plus a Jewish guy wrote that. They're not going to let a Jewish guy write our national anthem. They don't like that. Whoa, but it was okay for a Jewish guy to fund the Revolutionary War. Don't forget Chaim Solomon. He's the one that funded the Revolutionary War. If it wasn't for that Jewish man, a proud Jewish man, who started a congregation in Philadelphia, long story. Go look at my podcast. Go look at the past. Good story about him. We wouldn't have won the war if it wasn't for old Chaim. Baruch Hashem, Chaim. Blessed be he. May his name and memory always be a blessing. But I think another good song for the United States would be This Land Is Your Land by Woody Guthrie. They'll never do that either. But I don't like the Star Spangled Banner. You know? And it's, you can say what you want, but that's my feelings. Like I said, I have problems with slaveholders. I just have a problem with that. I have a problem with these rich people. I have a problem with the people in power today and all their money and all their power. And they talk a good game, but they don't do anything for me and you. These guys in the beginning, they put their names on the line and they said they wanted freedom for everybody. Did they want freedom for everybody, or was it more for themselves? Because a majority of them profited off of the end of the war. Afterwards, they got more land. They got more business. They had connections going with other countries. A lot of these guys got richer. So do you think they were in it for the United States of America, or do you think they might have had a little ulterior motive back there? That's politicians, and that's what these guys were. It's time we get right, people. Stop glorifying the wrong people in this country. I have no problem with the United States of America. It's a beautiful country. I love it. I don't like a lot of the rules. I don't like a lot of the people in charge. I never have, never will. But while I'm here, I'm going to do the best I can. And I'm going to make it the best damn country in the world for me and for everybody around me. Because I don't care. I don't care about the people at the top. I care about you guys. I care about the people, my brothers and sisters out there. I care about the poor. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to love one of each other. We're not supposed to judge one another like these dudes. And we got to quit bowing down to these corrupt individuals. This is our country, people. It's time we take it back. Hey, God bless America. Peace.